Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. This is the Monday Night Raw review. As we've already discussed, if you listen to our reviews, Andy is on his hollybobs. He's back at the end of the week, so we will be, although he was here on the SummerSlam review show, he will be back, I believe, at the end of the week. So you'll see he's red lobster skin. Well, potentially red lobster skin. I'm assuming he's suntanned or sunburned. It seemed hot out there. So to do the Raw review this week, of course, we always have somebody. We break down the Forbidden Door walls to our AEW compadre, Dave Robinson. You okay, my friend?
I'm really good, mate. I think you two just look for excuses not to review Raw. I've reviewed more Raw shows than the pair of you.
Hey, listen, mate. I've reviewed Raw reviews on my own when I started this, when Andy was, busy working. So I never look for an excuse. I always like to review the shows if I can. Now, SummerSlam, I was actually at was I at an event? What was I doing last time?
You was at Rev Pro.
I was at Rev Pro. My God, Connor Mills ended up in my lap. They had a 10-man to start the main event. Before the bell had gone off, they were fighting it literally into the crowd. We posted a reel up of it. And Mills gets thrown into like the fourth row. It's just like by Robbie X. But anyway, Rev Pro was amazing. I need to just give my feedback on SummerSlam. I know Andy gave my score because I've listened to the review because I edit the videos and put them up. So I hear what you're all saying. I thought SummerSlam was a pile of shit. Swear to you.
Didn't like it, did you?
I hated it. It was so predictable. I mean, listen, some of the matches were good. Some of the match quality was there.
Yeah.
But it was just so predictable. I just sat there. Like the women's match, when Bianca got injured when she hit the stairs. I said, right, she's winning this and Io's cashing in. And as soon as she done it, I knew it. And it was just so like, the Roman match. And the Roman match was another prime example. You read the rules of tribal combat. No interference.
Yeah.
And this is where, I rant about WWE, like insulting intelligence of fact. Like you said, you gave a narrative that this Cody Rhodes uses the steel steps in front of the referee in a match that, as far as we know, is just a one-on-one match. Referee sees it, doesn't DQ it.
Yeah, I heard Jimmy Corderas talking about this, former WWE ref, and he said that should have been a DQ. There was a question whether Brock should have been disqualified for using the table. But Corderas said that's part of that was already there. It wasn't set up. It was just part of the surroundings. So it's the same as throwing someone against the ring post. That's not a DQ. But he did say the ring steps should have been a DQ, but the table spot shouldn't have been. So yeah, you're right. There's definitely these things to point out.
And this is why I gave such a low score. It's like insulting intelligence of fans.
Yeah, like Roman Reigns got injured allegedly at the start of that match.
I'm literally about to cover that. There was some news coming out of SummerSlam.
Cool.
We'll hit it straight away now. Roman Reigns was apparently injured during the suicide dive early on by Jey Uso in this match. Now, fortunately, Roman's probably not going to be competing for a while anyway. Now, because I think they're moving the bloodline into a different direction for a bit with Jimmy and Jay. But surely, if it's serious, and we don't know the severity, nobody knows the severity. It's been kept quite close. He's on SmackDown on Friday, as far as I'm aware. Jimmy's going to acknowledge him this week. If it's serious, though, have they got to put serious consideration to taking the title off of him?
I doubt it. I've watched the Cody Rhodes documentary this morning, and I'm more and more convinced that they absolutely made the wrong decision not putting over Cody in that match. So I've got that in my head as you asked me that question. But yeah, I don't think they will. I think it's probably a convenient excuse for them to keep the belt on him for longer. They certainly won't be enforcing any no defend within 30 days, so you've got to relinquish kind of stuff, will they?
No.
So yeah, I don't think it really causes a major, and I would say it's more of an impact injury as well, off the back of a suicide dive rather than a break or anything. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think it
know.
was the way the arm was positioned.
Yeah,
His arm, I think that's what he hurt. I don't know.
yeah,
And the J landed on his arm, and I
yeah.
think it could have been an impact. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be severe enough for 6-8 months.
No,
It's
and
one
he
of them
finished the
type
match.
yeah.
And his matches, they are, I mean, we didn't notice it necessarily on the SummerSlam review show,
No.
because there is kind of a slow pace to Roman's matches, and they build towards the big finish that usually involves outside interference. So I don't think it's nothing they couldn't work around, even if they had to. But yeah, I don't think it will play into any storylines at all. I think he'll still be appearing as he was kind of, if he's advertised for any shows or if there's any storyline developments which will need Reigns to be there. I shouldn't expect that he'll miss any of those commitments. But yeah, I don't think he'll be losing the title until WrestleMania at the earliest.
Yeah, me too. I mean, as unless it was really serious enough where they're looking at a 12-month, outlay. But anyway, look, we hope that it's not serious. We hope he's due on SmackDown Friday. Might get some more clarity on Friday. But yeah, look, we just hope that it's not serious and he can bounce back very soon and continue what has been probably the great storyline in for at least a number of years. But it needs to change, and maybe they're moving into the direction now where things will change a little bit. Second bit of news is a commentary reshuffle. So it was announced before SummerSlam, I think, that going forward on Monday Night Raw, the commentators will be Michael Cole, Wade Barrett, which were SmackDown's commentators. And then the SmackDown commentators will be Kevin Patrick, Corey Graves from Raw, plus Michael Cole. Apparently Endeavor love Michael Cole, and this is the whole reason why they're doing it. And I think also, excuse me, someone like Kevin Patrick, it gives him a real fountain of knowledge to work on or to work with before Michael Cole decides to, retire and do what he needs to do. Because I think they like Kevin Patrick, but I think that he does lack something there. So working with Cole for the foreseeable on SmackDown will help, because him and Wade Barrett have a great chemistry as it is.
Yeah, man, Andy picked up on it on the review of SummerSlam. They're obviously high on Patrick, otherwise they would have just got rid of him altogether. The fact that they're keeping him on SmackDown says a lot. There are times when kind of Patrick comes out with stuff that is a little bit nonsensical. So having somebody to kind of check his notes before they go live and give him some pointers, because hopefully, Kevin Patrick is the man that WWE want to take it into the next era, because Michael Cole's not going to be around forever. And he has hinted that, maybe a couple more years and then he'll be gone and spending more time at home with his wife. As far as Raw's concerned this week, it did have a bit of a bigger feel to it. And that's probably because the voice of the WWE for so many WrestleManias and, big shows was back at the helm. So I think that did help Raw, even though I don't like to admit it, because, difference of opinion in terms of the best commentators of all time with myself and Mr. Burrows. But I've got to say, Michael Cole did give Raw a real, a more impetus this week, and it set it off to a great start in what was a really good offering from the WWE this week.
I have to say, I was really impressed with Monday Night Raw. So coming off the back of SummerSlam that I didn't like, and I made it quite clear I didn't like it. Monday Night Raw as a whole was 3 solid hours of wrestling, and I didn't fast forward any of it for a first.
Yeah, that's the first time for me that I've watched Raw since I've been watching again on a weekly basis that I didn't get any kind of fatigue or any type of checking how long's left. It was a thoroughly entertaining show.
It really was, and it kicked off with Cody that come out and basically was cutting his usual promos. He's on top of the world. He can beat anybody. All of a sudden, that brings out the world heavyweight champion Seth Rollins. Now, prior to the whole Brock thing, him and Seth were having a bit of a to-do anyway. So it looked as if they were going in that direction, maybe building up to a match. Outcome the Judgment Day, who have got problems of their own at the moment with Finn and Priest, minus Finn at this stage. Then they got involved in a bit of a slanging match, and then Finn decides. Judgment Day basically said that they run Raw, basically. Anyway, there was a face-off. It all suddenly kicks off. Finn Balor then shows up, and it was a beatdown. Sami Zayn then runs out for the save, which basically led to a six-man being made later. Although that does change, not the match type, but some of the at least one of the participants changes, which we'll get into in a minute. But a solid way to start off Raw at the minute, and just really make, as Raw normally does at the start, it normally ends with the main event being booked.
Yeah, and what I liked about this as well is they didn't pretend that they didn't insult our intelligence, like you said, about the history between Cody and Seth. They acknowledged it. There was an uneasiness about it. Which that there should be, shouldn't there, in any storyline continuation of those being involved with each other on screen. So I really like that attention to detail, and it's not something that you would be easily miss. You know, you would think most people would say, well, we need to explain this and we need to do something, but too many times in the past WWE have kind of moved on quickly, and you know, everyone's best friends again, and you kind of you get a bit frustrated as a long-term fan. But yeah, that whoever kind of penned this story or the creative this week was mindful of that, which I appreciate as a fan.
Yeah, I definitely did as well. Wow, I mean, and then they kick it off. I mean, geez, what a way to kick off Raw. Fatal four-way. So they done a little bit of a thing backstage where Adam Pearce was apologizing to Ricochet for the referee not seeing the brass knuckles.
Yeah.
Logan Paul at SummerSlam. He said, look, referee's decision is final. I can't change that. But what I can do is put you in this match, which was Tommaso Ciampa, Matt Riddle, Chad Gable, and Ricochet. #1 contenders match to take on Gunther at a later date. My God, what an absolute match. Look, I wax lyrical about Chad Gable all the time on here, and he's finally getting that singles run thing push that I want to see. He held his own against Gunther last week for 5 minutes, I think it was. This match was absolutely brilliant. A way to start off a show for a match to have the fans hot and invested. I mean, he was in Chad's hometown, so they were all over him more than normal. Great fatal four-way. Gable picks up the win and will go on to face Gunther, maybe at Payback, maybe before. But Dave, what a great way to start Raw that was.
Yeah, it was sensational. And you would think off the back of that, they will kind of take notice and future Raws perhaps will have a similar kind of feel, because this was just an absolute winning formula. And in terms of the fact that it was where Gable was from as well, that couldn't have gone any better. And the ultimate winner and the direction of the match was heavily kind of invested in that fact, you know. And they don't always do that, you know, in wrestlers' hometowns. Too many times they're kind of embarrassed or they're showing up in their hometown, which is something AEW have got a very different approach to. So for WWE to be kind of changing tact in terms of that, even if it was just for this 1 week, really helped out Gable. Got a much bigger reaction. He'd have got a great reaction wherever, but the fact that it was in front of his hometown fans, you know, it made it seem like a much bigger deal than it was. And it didn't really hurt three guys that didn't win either. I was concerned when this started that Ricochet had been kind of relegated back down the pack again.
Yeah.
But I don't think ultimately that was how I felt as the match went on. I just thought it was 4 great young competitors on Raw going out there, giving us a great match, and any one of the 4 could have won. And I think we'd have been happy with any of the 4 as a winner. Perhaps Andy wouldn't like Riddle winning. But in terms of us, you know, any one of the 4, but the fact that it was in Minneapolis was, you know, great reason to give Gable that position. And yeah, he had his little dress rehearsal against Gunther last week, come through that with flying colours. So looking forward to their next match.
Yeah, I hope they give it the time. I mean, even if Gunther ends up winning, which he probably will, you know, just give that 20 minutes, let him go. I mean, it's going to be an incredible match, that one, surely.
Well, I would like Gable to be the man that does take the title off him. But there's about 30 days or 20 odd days left to go for him to take on the longest ever reign. So I don't think anything's going to stop him from doing that. But yeah, if we can perhaps lead to a couple of match series for these guys, I think Gable could be the man that takes the title off Gunther. He's definitely popular enough.
Oh, he's definitely got that. It's definitely about that to him. And Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right. Maybe, Gunther wins the first one. Maybe they have like a DQ second. I don't know, something along those lines. And
Yeah, they can come up with something pretty compelling. And Gable's got the talent. He's got the
tell
fan
you
base.
what,
He's got the experience.
give me,
I would like him to have a long reign as well.
give me 2 out of 3 falls. Give me a mini Iron Man. Give me an Iron Man with them 2 guys. Jeez, let's let them throw down. It's going to be.
That's a great shout, mate, because obviously they started off with them 2 Gunther saying that he wouldn't last 5 minutes with me. And then not only did Gable do that and then some, could have on another night picked up the win. If this ends up with Gable saying, initially you said I couldn't last 5 minutes with you, you can't last 60 minutes with me. That's a great story there.
And sidetracking to AEW, what I think AEW would have done here if they were looking at going down that Iron Man route would have been to have a time limit draw.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
they do that. Well, they do that, and they've done it, in the past. So I think it would have been beneficial for WWE to do something like that for this. And then if they were going to build towards something like that, have a time draw, then you're right. Can't hang on me for 60.
Yeah,
let them go. It would be great. But we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. That match alone, I'd be happy just to sit there and watch that. So can't wait for that. We go backstage. There's a bit of tension because Cody and Sammy are talking strategy without yellow boots. Oh yeah, we didn't mention the boots.
Massive Crocs.
My God, they were like, geez, where did he get them? Anyway, talking a bit of strategy about Seth. Seth's not happy. Sammy's trying to play peacemaker. Teasing a little bit of tension between Cody and Seth, which is understandable. And again, you're right here. They're not buddies, you know what I mean? And at least they made that point of them being a bit of tension between those two. And because sometimes you see it everywhere where they just 1 minute, because they're teaming up, they're friends all of a sudden. At least they're keeping it the way they're keeping it.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, and there's probably more history to come. And those 3 matches were epic. So to just forget about it and move on, they're playing happy families would have been, inconsistent. So yeah, this again, they didn't place a foot wrong with this.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad, and you're right. Listen, they've had 3 matches. They don't need to. They need to have that tension there for them too, because they're 2 of the biggest stars anyway. Then the Miz comes in, and he's waiting, and he's just about to walk into a photo shoot, and was told, "Nope, you can't go any further." And there's LA Knight having pictures. Now look, I love LA Knight, and I love the segment that we're going to get to. Here's my gripe. He's on SmackDown. He's on SmackDown.
Yeah.
He's a SmackDown. He got drafted to SmackDown. This is the thing that what's the point in them having a draft? The free agent bit, I get it. I don't mind that. I don't mind Corbin, Dana Brooke, you got Ali and all these free agents. I don't mind them being free agents and they can have a few of them fluttering around. He's SmackDown. Because he wins the Slim Jim Battle Royal, now it gives him the chance, it gives him the gratitude or the opportunity to move wherever he wants. I just don't get that. Yeah,
that's what Wade Barrett said. If you win that, you can go anywhere, or seemingly. There was no clarity. There's no said this is the reason why this is happening. And it wouldn't take much to explain it. So it's a little bit of laziness, I think, to do that. And not this was the last time I mentioned AEW, but the fact that they've split their roster into Collision and Dynamite, but it's not a hard split. It's like these guys are generally here, these guys are generally here, and we're having a bit of storyline development. I think that's a better way to do it. And the draft has been pathetic, to be totally honest with you. And as you say, this was great in terms of what we saw with Miz and LA Knight. Really, really good segment. But the setup and the explanation to why LA Knight was there in the first place was, not good.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could listen to LA Knight all day. And I've listened to Miz on the mic all day. But it just... There was no logical sense as to why LA Knight was there. Now, you said, Barrett said, oh, he can go wherever he wants. He wins Battle Royal. Well, there was nothing to say that on the Battle Royal. They just had this random Battle Royal, and there was nothing you didn't get anything by it. If they had said, hey, look, if you win it, you can appear on both shows.
Yeah. Fine. And all they would have done, they've got Adam Pearce there. They can say, due to what happened in a photo shoot this afternoon, we've invited LA Knight here to discuss what happened with the Miz, was words to that effect. You know, it wouldn't take much to course correct it,
and that's
but just to not do anything about it, it's just a bit lazy.
Yeah, that's what annoys me about it sometimes. They do all the good things like the Seth and the Cody thing. They manage to keep that.
Yeah.
They don't explain the basics, and that's the bit that annoys me. Anyway, let's move on because there's another great match next with Shinsuke Nakamura, and we now have to call him Big. And if that's not
because we would never get that, would we, from looking at him?
I mean, you know, he's not like he's a fridge or anything. That's not a Vince McMahon narrative, is it? Anyway, Big Bronson Reed and Shinsuke. Now they've had a bit of a to-do over the last month, so this was probably a culmination of it is a culmination of the storyline, and we'll get into the reasons why later on. But a contrast of styles, a phenomenal that was a pay-per-view quality one-on-one match, and between, you know, sometimes conflicting styles don't work, and we've had it on here and we've said it on here. This worked brilliantly.
Yeah, and this was the best Shinsuke match I've seen for a long time. You know, this was great. There was no element of going through the motions. This was a really good. They got great chemistry, and as you say, a complete different style. But they just blended so well together. And this was great. And obviously the finish as well plays into what comes further along tonight.
Yeah, exactly that. Shinsuke took 2 Kinshasas to beat him, but he got the job done. And it wasn't a fan. What did you say? Shinsuke's best outing for a while. Bronson Reed, in my opinion, is money. They just got to work out what to do with him at the moment. But, you know, he's
like, I would say they kind of getting this exposure on Raw, and at some point he moves to SmackDown, and he really gets the momentum then. But with how easily they can go between Raw and SmackDown,
he'll be on there Friday. Right?
The
way they do their stuff. There's a couple of backstage bits next. Raquel Rodriguez was not cleared again. Her and Rhea had a bit of a ruck last week. Rhea injured her. Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae was magically there. I thought I thought it was going to appear on a packet of milk cartons. They've been missing for about the last 6 weeks. They appeared. Was offering her support. Like to know the storyline explanation for that one. But anyway, Becky has come back. Becky was come out. And in between that, they had a commercial. And in between that, they had this thing with Ludwig Kaiser trying to chat up Maxine Dupree. He sort of turns back around, and there's the tree trunk Otis, and it sets up a match for later on. Becky comes out talking about this whole thing with Trish. Triple H skated over this in the press conference. Well, there wasn't a card announced, so there wasn't cancelled.
Yeah,
serious. Come on, look, this match was meant to happen at SummerSlam. For whatever reason, it's happening next week in Canada. Anyway, Becky Lynch comes out. She goes on a triad. She's talking about Lemonade, because obviously there was a bit there about Lemonade. Triple H made a thing out of. Zoe Stark comes out. And Shayna Baszler comes out sporting a big shiner from her match with Ronda Rousey, or MMA rules match at SummerSlam. And then Shayna and Zoe start getting into it a bit, and Becky Lynch is playing, I'm not saying peacekeeper, but she's stirring the pot a little bit. And she basically makes Adam Pearce make the match official between Stark and Baszler, which Baszler goes on and picks up the win. Where is Shayna Baszler now? Because I understand with Ronda Rousey, she was getting the face pop. She was getting it. And I suppose putting her against Zoe Stark, she would get the reaction because no one really likes Zoe. I think Zoe Stark's great, by the way, but you know, she's obviously doing that. She still had a bit of a thing with Becky. That wasn't necessarily, she wasn't friends with Becky. But where are they going with this with Shayna?
Yeah, I said to Andy that I thought they should perhaps take Shayna off TV for a few weeks now and bring her back, and she's the badass that we saw on NXT. But perhaps she looked more badass coming out sporting that shiner. And it doesn't particularly help Zoe Stark taking the loss here, but it really does help build on Shayna's momentum. So, I think that the picture with Rhea Ripley is a bit crowded with Raquel at the minute. But perhaps Shayna goes on a bit of a run of wins, and ultimately then challenges one of those two. down the line. I don't think it hurt Zoe Stark as much as it would have hurt Shayna Baszler if she would have lost, even though she was a bit beat up. So I was kind of glad they did this. But yeah, I think Shayna's great. Really do. I think she's good, really good on the microphone as well. I think she's really underrated on the microphone. So I'm hoping that this is the run that we thought we were going to get when she was called up a few years ago.
Yeah, the Piper's Pit finisher was a bit off though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a little bit missed. But look, these things happen, and the thing is, I think if Zoe had tapped out, that may have been a bit more of a damaging defeat for her than a Finn of a 1-2-3. So the Coquita clutch probably wasn't the way to finish that particular match off. So probably the best way to do that than that one. So backstage at this point, Saxon is talking with Nakamura. Nakamura's no one's going to get in his way. Then all of a sudden there's this big bang and people are getting knocked, there's things being knocked over. And there's JD McDonough standing over Nakamura. Now, JD McDonough earlier on in the show, was it earlier on or did they have a bit after? I can't remember if it was before or after.
They've been he was talking with Finn, wasn't he?
And he was sort of getting in the middle of them two saying, hey, you got to cash in that briefcase. This is causing the problem. Anyway, he decides to beat up Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn's got his, I think they call it a Percocet or something on his elbow, which makes it look really big. He kicks the living bejesus out of Sami Zayn, which then we find out Sami Zayn's now no longer able to compete later on. So we'll discuss that later. But finally coming back up to having JD McDonough with the Judgment Day. This was looked at just after WrestleMania. I think Vince dropped it for whatever reason. It's now coming back to the fray. Probably at the right time with all this tension with Priest and Balor.
Yeah, and I'm undecided on which way they'll go with this, but I hope now they don't just forget about it, because we've seen that a few months ago. So I'd like the Judgment Day to keep going. I think they've got some real good momentum, and they have been running Monday Night Raw. So I think it would be a bit premature to end the Judgment Day or to do the Balor Priest match anytime soon.
Yeah. So
I think introducing JD at this point is a good move. And they can use him as another person or another issue in between Priest and Balor.
Yeah, and it also adds that other, they're always saying that when the Bloodline finishes, it's the Judgment Day. So it kind of adds that extra element, which is like when it starts to become stale, you throw something in, or you throw a curveball, or you add somebody. So this is probably the right time. Maybe WrestleMania wasn't the right time to add JD McDonough at that point.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, there's this thing of Priest, there's the Money in the Bank, there's a bit of dissension. Even if they don't split them all up and he gets inserted into the Judgment Day, and then he may then start to pick at one of them to try and get the other one, play that.
Yeah, playing them off each other, or, was be right. I think that's probably what we're going to see. Perhaps him taking orders from Finn, but he perhaps doesn't take orders from Priest, or, cause a bit more dissension between those two. Maybe even factors into the cash-in if we ever failed cash-in. It'd be interesting.
Do you think it's going to be a failed cash-in with Priest?
I don't know. I mean, I don't see how they get. I mean, the beauty is with Money in the Bank, there doesn't need to be much of a story. They could spring it at any point. And any time that Seth Rollins is beat up or vulnerable, you could have Priest walking out with the title. It just depends whether that includes the Judgment Day by Priest's side or whether he's acts alone. I think that's the intrigue, really.
Or just JD McDonough help him.
Yeah, well, that could be how he kind of wins over Priest by helping him secure the successful cash-in. So there's a lot of things that they can do here. And how
long do you think before we actually get? Because we've had a couple of teasings. We had a teasing the women's one. The women's one was the one that was meant to be fouled, and it wasn't. So
yeah.
How long do you think do we give this? Is it Rumble? Is it where?
I think it will be done this year. I don't. We were kind of fantasy booking on the SummerSlam review show about The Rock and different things that might factor into the title picture. And I know we've got two titles, so there's what happens with Roman Reigns doesn't necessarily affect what happens with the Judgment Day. But I don't think it will go till then. I think Damien is still a heel. You know, he's a likable character in many ways. You know, we all admire him as a performer, but he is still a heel. So I do still think at some point in the next couple of months he'll be cashing in.
Yeah, I hope so. I'd like to see him with the title, to be fair. I hope he isn't a fouled one. The next one was Ludwig Kaiser and Otis. It was quite a quick match. Still summing around, you know, Ludwig trying to get in with Maxine at this point. He does pick up the win.
Another win, you know, it's back-to-back wins, I think, there for Ludwig. And he's a real great wrestler himself. So I'm glad he's not just he is obviously the right-hand man for Gunther and part of the support team, but he's not just fodder that goes out there and takes the losses. No, he is picking up his victories in his own right. So I'm a fan of Ludwig.
He's got a good look about him, hasn't he? He's got a good look about him. He's good in the ring. There was a bit of interference from Gunther and Vinci that ultimately cost Otis. Chad Gable run out at the end. They retreated, and Gunther's got a big smile on his face at this point. So, yeah, good back-to-back win for Ludwig Kaiser. Now we're at the back again, and we mentioned earlier that McDonough had beaten up Sami Zayn, and he's now not able to compete. Cody and Seth confirmed that. It was going to be 3-on-2. Now in my head here, I had predicted McIntyre. That was because I'd been conspicuously lost to Gunther. I thought McIntyre was going to show up. But anyway, long story short, Shinsuke Nakamura comes in and says to Seth, I'll be your partner. And they agree. And so it's going to be Nakamura in the main event with Seth and Cody against the Judgment Day. So it was it was a surprising one. I was expecting McIntyre. So
I think the fact that he'd already competed, you'd kind of written off the fact that he would have any more involvement in the night, and to be then added to the main event. I thought this was something a little bit different, and I think it was a great move.
It wasn't as if his match with Bronson Reed was quick.
No, exactly. He had a full physical encounter. So you wouldn't. He wouldn't have been in your top 5 if you'd have had to predict who it was going to be. I don't think you would have guessed Shinsuke. So, an interesting move, which we saw why it was a bit preconceived as we get to the end of Raw.
We will do, and we'll get into that. The next was a bit of a roast off between the Miz and LA Knight on the mic. Now again, we won't talk about the draft because it's just pathetic. These two guys had a mic off basically. Listen, I think if you're going to have to hold your own on the mic, you're going to have to do it against someone like Miz, because he on the mic, if you're going to have this sort of worked shoot thing on the mic where you dig into him a little bit, he's one of the best to do it again. He's one of the best because he will do it. And they had this big sort of microphone back off, and I think to be honest, I think that was kind of a draw. I think it was kind of a draw. I think the Miz come up with a couple of good ones. You took you 20 years to get here, and you're not even really doing it yet. And LA Knight was like, it took me 20 years, but it makes me a dangerous man. And at the end of it, they have a fight, and he hits the blunt force trauma on the Miz, and then he exits. But interestingly, with LA Knight, where do they go with him now? Because this is the thing. He's showing up on Raw. He's a SmackDown guy. He went toe-to-toe with The Miz on the mic. Are we going to see The Miz on SmackDown this week? Is it going to be a little program? Is Grayson Waller going to get involved? Because we saw on the Royal Battle Royal, him and The Miz had a little bit of a tag team thing, and The Miz looked as if he liked the idea of it. Grayson Waller, another great talker as well. Does he get involved somehow?
Yeah, that might have been a better way to do it in the first place if the winner of the SummerSlam Battle Royal was on the Grayson Waller effect. But I don't know if he was even there this week. So he's a SmackDown.
SmackDown guy, so we don't know.
So maybe on SmackDown we get something along those lines, but can the Miz then come over onto SmackDown? It's a little bit confusing. This is obviously going to lead to a match between the Miz and LA Knight, probably at the next pay-per-view, which is Payback, is it? Payback. So I just thought that will be like the longer-term plan. But it's just a little bit hard to predict given the lack of attention paid to the draft. But this was a good pairing. And if LA Knight is going to move on to the main event picture, then he's got to take on people like The Miz, former world WWE champion. So, I did like this. You just had to Yeah, you just had to ignore the draft stuff.
Yeah, then it was a very good microphone diss.
Yeah, there was some good zingers from both sides. You know, Miz kind of gets that real kind of agitated, and like the first time I saw him do that was on Talking Smack a few years ago with Daniel Bryan. And he's done it a few times since, but this was one of the this was really, really you know, a really effective promo and segment. So yeah, I definitely want to see more of this.
Just sidetracking to the Cody Rhodes documentary, you said that you watched it.
Yeah,
you're talking zingers or the Triple H one. It was a bit unnecessary when he said that Cody didn't want to be the champion in a secondary company.
Yeah,
just sidetracking, but I'm just, you know.
Well, to be totally honest, they are secondary. They're the second biggest promotion, wrestling promotion in the world, I would say. WWE have got a 60-year head start, or you know, certainly in the last 40 years, things have just gone to, you know, the next level from where it was to what it is today. It's like one of the biggest entertainment organizations in the world, let alone wrestling. It did seem a little bit needless, though. I don't know. Part of it, I think Tony Khan's reacted, and he didn't kind of fly off the handle. He just pointed out the metrics that AEW are kind of doing better than WWE at, and the UK fan base is something that can certainly be factored into that.
Yeah, he did mention Wembley, didn't he?
So yeah, I'm sure Triple H could have said something worse. I think his T-shirt company and those type of pissant company, I think those comments are probably, I don't know, he can't particularly be proud of those comments, because they've kind of come back to bite him to a degree. I suppose they expected AEW to have the success that they've had, but at the same time, they are the number one show in town. They are the biggest wrestling company in the world, and likely will be for a long time. But I think there could be a little bit more respect there. It's certainly, as we spoke about on our Impact review, a working relationship and a lot of respect between Impact, New Japan, and AEW. I'm not saying that we're going to have a combined show, but AEW were obviously good enough to allow the WWE to feature some of the Being the Elite footage in their documentary, which they perhaps didn't have to do. So yeah, a bit needless.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I just was, I didn't like the use of that. I think he could have worded it.
He could have just said that, you know, from the second biggest promotion back to the first, you know, that would have been factual. To say a secondary, it's like saying that there's a lot of secondaries, where AEW is by far the biggest competition that the WWE has. Yeah. So he could have been a little bit more respectful.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, sidetracking along, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because it was something that cropped up that when I heard it, I was a bit like, I don't like it, because it just sets that tribalism shit off again.
Yeah.
I can't be doing with it, you know. Anyway, the Viking Raiders had a message from the gods again. The gods are back on their side after they beat American Alpha and American Alpha. Jesus, it was American Alpha, right? That's what they're called, isn't it?
Alpha Academy.
It's American Alpha's Jason Jordan, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's a producer now. Alpha Academy. Anyway, the gods are back on their side, and they were going to challenge anybody. And I was a bit weird about this, because I was like, well, who's left?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, shock for me. It was a New Day. Yes, it is again. And I was like, oh, of course, the New Day. I thought, you know, Kofi was injured, and Xavier was pretty much doing nothing, because we don't know what's going on with Big E. It looks like there's moving more towards retirement than it is an in-ring comeback. So it was Kofi and Xavier are back as a team, and they got the win over the Viking Raiders. Fairly short match. I like the Viking Raiders, and there's because they're two big meaty guys, and I just don't like this whole win loss thing with them. It's like, I don't know. I'd rather them not be on telly if they're not going to pick up wins. I mean, listen, it's great to see the New Day back. They're a mainstay of WWE. They're great, but I'm just not sure that was the right way to bring them back in.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is Kofi looked so happy to be back, to be back in action. It was good to see, particularly with us hearing perhaps it's not great news with Big E.
Yeah.
And, you know, perhaps he won't be making a return at all. Hopefully It's early days, and other wrestlers have come back from serious neck injuries when it has looked like that there was no chance of it. So we hope that Big E can join that list. But I get what you're saying. The Viking Raiders picked up the win a few weeks ago in the Viking combat match, or the Viking rules match. So yeah, you would think they're going a bit of more momentum and a few more wins. But I suppose they could always say that they were caught off guard by the New Day, which then will lead to another match that they'll win, and probably a more of a story there. But you kind of forget how big a team the New Day is to the WWE and their championship reigns and all of their history. And it was like, yeah, where have they been for so long? You kind of sometimes you think, when I know we've talked about it when we were putting the super shows together. You don't see these guys for a long time, and they can kind of slip out of your mind a little bit. So it was a great return, and good to see them both back.
Yeah, and they're now looking towards the tag team titles. Now, that is a bit uncertain at the moment as well, with Kevin Owens injured. We're not sure the extent of Sami Zayn's injury, whether that's just a common thing that they can do. So we're not quite sure, which brings me on nicely to probably the most cursed titles in the WWE at the moment, the women's tag team titles. Now, it was announced that Sonya Deville was torn her ACL, so Chelsea's now parading Chelsea 2 belts. This is I'm sorry to be swear, but what a shit time for it to happen. Like, Sonya's been busting her gut for 8 years in the WWE with no success. She's been jobbing out. She was an authority figure. She was never really hit the standard that she could get. All of a sudden, she gets put in a tag team with Chelsea Green. They're annoying as anything. They're doing the job. They win the titles. Bang. And it looks like now it's going to be taken away from her because of this injury. What crap timing.
Yeah, you really feel for her. As you say, she's had this long road to going to get there. And the fact that she'd got this title, and to be honest, they look a pretty good team.
Yeah.
And I don't think there were too many eyebrows raised when they won the titles. It kind of made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But for the reign to be cut short by this, I mean, you'd like to think that Chelsea will get a replacement partner, but going off the back of what they've done previously, they've got to strip the titles, right? That's what's happened with Liv. And
well, what happened was they stripped her, and then they gave Raquel they put Raquel in the match with a new partner, but they were not the champions.
So
the name that's coming up, that's potentially coming back, which maybe would work is Nia Jax.
Yeah, that could be an interesting one. I'm not sure how she left the company. She was at the Rumble, wasn't she? Was that her last appearance?
Yeah, there was a thing
Rumble?
about a lot of it was about being unvaccinated. Listen, it was always budget cuts. If you believe that, you believe anything. But there was I think she made a point about being unvaccinated and stuff like that at a time of COVID and all that sort of stuff.
I hope this doesn't affect Chelsea Green too much, because, as you say, she's kind of been establishing herself, and she's annoying, but on purpose. She is the Karen type of storyline or persona, isn't she? But they both were Karens. So I think there's some mileage in that. And I hope that she carries on featuring, whether she's going to have the titles or not, and whether she'll get a replacement partner or not. I certainly hope that she's still appearing weekly on Raw.
Yeah, I mean, she had a bad run of luck as well when she was first in the WWE. She was breaking her arm left, right, and center, and then she got released. So it's just such crap timing. And look, we hope Sonya just heal up, get your surgery, get back in, and hopefully you can, get back to where you were, because it's just a shit. I mean, someone that's, I always have this thing when someone's like a Dolph Ziggler, when they've worked for so long, and then they get a shot. I mean, like when Dolph Ziggler cashed in Money in the Bank, that was like, amazing. He was deserved. He'd been there for so long. And then 2 weeks later, he gets a concussion. They have to drop title off of him. And it was just like, oh, man. And then he held it for about another day after that, later on. But I just don't like that, especially when they've worked so hard for it. And hopefully, Sonya, just get better and heal up. And we'll see you back when you're fit and ready to go again. Anyway, she's done a video package that confirmed all of that stuff anyway that we just spoke about. And then we moved into the 6-man main event, which was Nakamura, Cody, and Seth against Judgment Day. Priest, Balor, and Dirty Dom, as we have to call him now, because that's his name. Another Vince McMahon narrative for you. Really good. I really enjoyed this. Again, the match quality this week on Raw was probably the best it's been in ages. Really good 6-man. They ends up with Cody and Seth and Nakamura picking up the win. Cody and Seth and Sammy at that point come back. He came back. They were posing on the corner. Seth turns around, wallop, gets hit with the Kinshasa, and Shinsuke just nonchalantly walks out the ring, which obviously sets up. So Shinsuke's now turned heel. It's going to set up a program with Seth, which I'm really looking forward to. A great 6-man. And what we always say about it is make the end of the show make you want to watch next week. And they covered that and they hit it out of the park.
Absolutely. Not only did it do that, I went and rewatched the segment when Shinsuke got added to the match, and I kind of saw then the look on his face, which was foreshadowing. Really, I didn't pick it up the first time. That
look remind me of. Have you ever seen Home Alone 2 when the guy's in the hotel and he catches out Kevin McAllister from?
Yeah. The big Grinch smile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, when I saw that, I didn't clock it the first time, so I kind of
that's just Nakamura, isn't it? That's what he does. He didn't do anything that would throw you off.
No, but then when that played out at the end, I thought, great. Yeah, not only have we got a great 6-man tag, we've got Sammy involved in it as well. We've got the ending that kind of what happens next week. What is the explanation from Nakamura? What's the retaliation from Seth? Because Seth had said that he'd always respected Nakamura, that he'd always kind of, had a good relationship with him. And for him to kind of turn his, is it just over the title or is there more to it than that? It'd be interesting to find out. But Raw this week for me was a solid 8.5. I might even say 9 out of 10, which is the first time I've been able to say that for a long time.
Yeah, I'm going to give Raw an 8.5. An 8. Sorry, not an 8.5. There was a couple of little bits. The nonsensical bits let it down for me. And that's the only reason why I'm not going any higher than 8. But question though, where does Cody go now?
I'm not sure. I'm not too sure, to be honest, because this was very much cut and dry. An issue with Nakamura and Rollins not going to involve Cody. So unless Cody stays doing stuff with the Judgment Day and Balor, because Balor obviously attacked him again at the start of the night. We've already seen 3 matches. Yeah, you can't think that there'd be a 4th, but maybe there is. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. The thing is now is that it's like I kind of agree that Andy made a really great point. It feels like they're doing a book with Cody. And it's chapters.
Yeah.
And he had a chapter with Rollins. He had a chapter with Reigns. He had a chapter with Lesnar.
I wouldn't have minded Logan Paul, to be totally honest. And Cody did eliminate him from the Rumble. So there's something that could work with there. But we're hearing now that Logan's having a boxing match up next. So, and obviously he's not full time with WWE, although he has got a contract with them for so many appearances and so many premium live events. But I thought that might have been something. Obviously, Logan picked up a win. Cody picked up the win. Then, as I say, some history there to play off. But perhaps we won't be seeing Logan Paul for a while again now.
Maybe sort of Survivor Series or around when they go back to Riyadh or whenever they're Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, you'd have thought so.
I think Saudi Arabia is more of the moneymaker, isn't it?
So
maybe Survivor Series as well. I don't know with Cody. I'm intrigued with Cody to see what's next, but I'm imagining it would be a kind of a chapter thing. I think that I agree with Andy. I think they're doing it like a book with him, and then that book ends at WrestleMania 40 when he finishes the story finally. And I don't think WWE are looking forward to that because how can you look forward to ending a story that's lasted nearly 4 years at that point? And how can you keep it compelling as they have done? So it'd be interesting with Cody. I'm not sure. But I agree with you. Really good, solid Raw. Best one in a while. I'm looking forward to watching it next week. I hope it's the taste of things to come. We did forget during the triple threat that Raquel Rodriguez did come out and fight with Rhea. It brought out Indy Hartwell again. It brought out Candice. So I'm assuming that Rhea's going to kind of take those two out first and then move
probably
to Raquel, maybe at Payback in 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks' time. It's the next pay-per-view, Payback.
They seem to be using the story that Raquel's injured and it's not Rhea. And in actual fact, we're hearing that Rhea is the one that has been nursing an injury, and that's why she hasn't been in action. But hopefully that's leading up to that one-on-one match. But yeah, Rhea might have to get through those two opponents in order to, for us to
I think it'll just be a case of Rhea demolishing Candice and Indy Hartwell. Unfortunately, they're both good workers, but I just think, Gargano's been sitting in catering for a while. There was talk of him and Ciampa DIY. That seems to have been shelved. I don't know why. Look, there's a lot of questions. There's still a lot more questions to be answered, but really good Raw. I'm not going to complain about it. Really good Raw. Really, really sets up next week really good. But now there's a new contender for Seth. We've got other things going on in the background. So really, really entertaining Raw. We are going to be talking to the owner of Black Country Championship Wrestling later on this evening. That will probably, so this is Wednesday, so that will probably come out on Thursday for those people that are interested. We're going to be talking about how to run a promotion with Mr. RC Chaos, I believe is his name.
That's right.
We're going to be talking about doing that. The Turnbuckle Championship announcement is Monday, so keep an eye on our social feeds for that. We're going to be announcing the competitors for our title match on the Ignite's Gold Rush. Tickets are going crazy already, so if you haven't already gone, get there to witness some history. And we've got some good names. We've got some names coming up as well, coming on to the show in the near future, which we won't name today. But there's some big names. We've got some Rev Pro. Yes, Dave, we've got DDP coming on. I wasn't thinking about DDP at this point because that's more later.
I'm excited.
Let's just go. We've got DDP coming on after All In. Before All In, I sit down with the Brooklyn Brawler, Steve Lombardi, guy that's had a massive career in wrestling. I do that when you and Andy are probably going to be at the Copper Box watching Rev Pro. Speaking of Rev Pro, we do have Kelly Marshall from Rev Pro. She is the voice, the woman voice, apart from Francesca, who does the introductions. We also have the announcer, Gio, that's coming on from Rev Pro next week as well. We're really looking forward to discussing all things Rev Pro with him. And I am finalizing a date with a Rev Pro star. I can't say the name yet because it wouldn't be right, because we haven't officially agreed on a date and a time yet. But we're going to be having one of them on soon. We've also got the leader of the movement, big LA Knight fan. His name's Tim. He's massive on social media. He's created this movement. We're going to be talking to him next week, I believe, as well. All things LA Knight, which we're all looking. Well, listen, we're all LA Knight fans here, so we're looking forward to that. But guys, keep it cool. We've still got some review shows to do this week. We'll have to. I think Friday will be Dynamite, as I'm conspicuous by my absence tomorrow. I won't be. I won't be Thursday. So for everyone, we normally do the review on Thursday, but it'll probably be Friday. We're going to be doing a top 10 Friday. I think if Andy gets back in time, I think that's going to be the top 10 underrated wrestlers. Isn't that going to be interesting? Can't wait to hear your list on that, Dave. That's going to be quite interesting. But guys, this has been the Hit the Turnbuckle podcast. He has been Dave Robinson. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. Until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe. Goodbye.